Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Tony Gold. This is our preview episode of Fulham's match on Saturday against Leeds United at Craven Cottage. This should be a lot of fun to talk to Tony about this upcoming match. We also have some other interesting topics to discuss. I want to talk about Josh King winning goal of the month and some interesting comments coming from Marco's presser, which I will share with Tony. And I have some interesting questions for him that we're going to discuss during the show. I also want to mention that this show is actually recording live on the Cottage Talk YouTube channel, my own personal Facebook account, and also on the Cottage Talk Facebook page. For whatever reason, I can't get it to work on X, but that is okay. We're still here live and we're going to record live. But if you want to listen to this episode of Cottage Talk, it is exclusive on the Cottage Talk Patreon page. So if you're interested, please do go to the Cottage Talk Patreon page. Would love for you to join us there. Okay, Tony, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me, Russ. Always good to see you. Always good to talk Fulham.
Okay, and look who's here with us.
Good man, Chris. Good evening.
And I like it, Coach Tony. And then Paul actually shares the same thing. Hi, Russ and Coach Tony. Maybe we should just refer to you as Coach Tony. I kind of like
maybe not. Maybe not.
All right, Tony. Listen, let's get going. And obviously, the international break was extremely long. And I got to be honest with you, I'm so happy that we can now actually talk about a full match, which we'll be doing in the second half of the show. But I found something very interesting that happened during this week, and it was the team putting out goal of the month, and fans voted for it. And one of the goals that was put up was Josh King's goal, which we all believe should have counted, definitely should have counted, as goal of the month, and it won goal of the month. So before I share a tweet from a friend of mine, I just want to get your thoughts on the fact that Fulham put this up as goal of the month and that Josh King won it. I think it's well-deserved. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was given the accolade it deserved because of the controversy around what happened, and taking that moment away from him. So, you know what? Absolutely, the fans voted for it quite rightly, regardless of whether it was chalked off or not. We all know it's a goal that should have stood. We all know that it's a moment that Josh King should have been looking back on, in his football career, because of, obviously the team that we were playing against, the stadium that he scored it in. And so to have that ripped away from him, and I know we've talked about it to death, but to have that moment ripped away from him was very cruel. And look, ultimately he's got a little bit of, justice out of it, I guess, if you want to call it that. And it was a great goal, Russ. It was just a great goal. And I'm pleased that he was recognised for it, even though it didn't count for anything.
No, it didn't. But I'm just glad that he was acknowledged, that the team acknowledged him, and it was well-deserved. But I can just tell you one thing, and I'm going to share this on my desktop. The reaction from several Chelsea supporters, including a friend of mine. I'm going to share this comment because Alex has actually been on the show, and I went on Alex's X account and I responded to him. I'm not going to share that tweet, but I'm just going to share the initial tweet that he sent here, Tony, because I don't get this. I think it has to do with the fact that maybe there are Chelsea supporters that are feeling kind of not great about the fact that they won this way, and they're reacting to it. So my friend Alex Goldberg, who has a pretty large following in regards to Chelsea supporters, he tweeted this. I've seen a lot of this. Petty and pathetic, what clowns? And if I scroll down just a little bit more, you'll see my response, because I called it a fake win. And I still believe it's a fake win. I just want to get your thoughts on the reaction by some in regards to this goal of the month from Josh King.
Well, clearly, Russ, football's not his game. He should stick to American football. Look, the reality is that what are Chelsea crying about? They won the game, they got the 3 points, but you know what? At least just stand up and say, you know what? The whole world saw it, and the only people that think it wasn't, the only people that think it was a foul were the Chelsea manager, the Chelsea players, and the Chelsea supporters. Funny that. I mean, it's. Listen, we're the clowns. We are the clowns. So let them have their 3 points and their moment. When they come back to the Cottage, you know, in next year, let's see what happens then.
Yeah, no, very, very good there, my friend. Okay, so enough of talking about my friend Alex. I do wish him the best. Like, he's a good guy. I actually used to
Yeah.
do a podcast with him, but we agree to disagree on this, and he's very close to that club, and we're close to this club. So, but I think that if you watch football, you can't deny what's going on here, that it was a goal. And then, of course, everything that's happened since then. But obviously, they're sensitive that people are taking shots at this
Russ,
victory.
putting the goal aside, right?
Yep.
It wasn't a foul. And VAR got
I
it
know we could go on and on.
tragically wrong. Simple as that. You know, the clowns are the clowns that are in that box running VAR. They're the clowns.
Totally agree. I'm there with you. Okay. So let's move on and let's talk about Marco's presser, okay? So what I thought I would do, I'm going to share my desktop once again. I'm going to share some comments that Jack Kelly shared from the presser, and I find them revealing, and I want to talk about them. I have some questions that we're going to go into off that. So let me just share this again and get your thoughts. Well, while I share, what were your thoughts about his presser?
Well, I think there's quite a lot in there, Russ, to sort of, cover and sort of talk about. I think the two things for me that I think are quite important are, first of all, on the team news, he seemed to be a little bit hesitant on Sessegnon and Anthony Robinson and sort of maybe suggested that Calvin Bassey might be playing left back tomorrow because they still, need to assess the fitness of both Robinson and Sess. So I don't know if something is going to be happening in that area, but obviously that's nothing that we can control. But the one thing I did want to pick up on is Silva reiterating about the lack of signings that this window managed compared to last season.
We're going to talk about that.
Players by this stage. And, he said that he had a plan and the plan did not go through. So what does that exactly mean? We had a plan to do what exactly? So I think that's something that needs to be, sort of talked about and what is this plan that he's on about?
Okay, so let's get to it. I'm going to talk about these tweets from Jack Kelly. These are quotes from Marco. So I'm going to share several of them, then we're going to have a discussion. Then we're going to talk about some questions I have that I feel that are necessary to talk about. So this is Silva on deadline day. Quote, I understand if the fans are emotional, if they weren't happy, to maybe expect something else. I understand the frustration. We signed 3 players. Jonah's very young from a top club. Then there's another quote about JK. We can talk about it another time, but I want to talk about some other tweets from Jack Kelly, from quotes from Marco. He says, Silva, quote, it's been our story. We were the team that spends less, net spend. We are the team at the bottom in terms of spending in the Premier League. I will make the players progress, grow. The team have been brave so far this season. We will try to do it again tomorrow. And then he says this, Tony, quote, we need the fans behind us. We have to be all together. The board, the fans, we've all got to be together. It's going to be a tough season, unquote. The fact that he said that was revealing to me. Okay, Tony, so let's talk a little bit more in detail about Marco's presser. Because I'm going to start here, Tony. I want to start with, well, actually, what are your thoughts about what I shared? And then we'll go to my question. Sorry.
Yeah, so basically what he's saying is we as a club are not pleased at all with what we've done and what's happened in the summer over the transfer window, right?
Right.
So if that's the case, isn't Marco Silva a part of that, fundamental structure within the club?
Right.
Right. He is the manager of the club. So is there a breakdown in communication? is Tony Khan completely unreachable and no one can speak to him and no one can run anything by him? And actually, Marco Silva doesn't have any say in what goes on at the club in terms of who comes in, who goes out. And he's just literally there to turn up on a Saturday, put a team out, managing coach from the sidelines, and then, do a bit of training in midweek. I'm getting a sense, Russ, that he is very fed up. I'm getting a sense that he's not happy about this plan that he had, and it hasn't, come to fruition for whatever reason. And we don't know what that is. But it doesn't need a rocket scientist to tell you that, of course, we're lacking. We knew that 6 months ago. We knew that when the table finished at the end of last season and where we finished and how the season ended for us. And we knew that we had to bring in some more quality, some more players to strengthen on what we've got. And the fact of the matter is, I think 2 of the 3 signings are quite exciting, and I'm actually looking forward to them. And the third one is an unknown entity. We got absolutely no idea what he's about, what he's going to bring. He's 19 years old. What are we expecting for him? So, yeah, it's been an abysmal market is the bottom line, and everybody's now putting their eggs in one basket, going Kevin. He's the saviour, and how much pressure is going to be on his shoulders now every week to perform?
A ton. There's no question about that, Tony. And very good comments from you. What I really wanted to talk to you about, I have 2 topics off of this from the presser. So let's start with this. I just shared some quotes from Marco, and there's been a constant amount in the past month, obviously the lead up to the end of the window, and now we have these. I'm going to ask the question. What do you think the Cons feel about Marco's presser? Because
I don't think they're going to be happy. But I think there's a bit of unrest behind the scenes, Russ. As I said, for Silva to come out and say, it's important to start the season well at home.
Right.
And the connection, he keeps talking about this connection with the fans. It's crucial. It's crucial. The fans and the Cons have been disconnected for quite some time. There has not been a connection. There is no connection between Tony Khan and the fans. None at all. In fact, most fans, the majority of them, can't stand the guy because, he doesn't show the interest in the club that he should. So I think Marco Silva is now sitting there thinking, well, how am I going to change games? How am I going to build on what I implemented at the end of last season? And not forgetting, Russ, we've got the African Nations Cup coming up, and he's going to lose 3 more key players, one of which we've just signed. They're not going to be around, and we are going to be bang in trouble. So I can understand that he's frustrated, but I'll go back to it, Russ. He is still a part of that funnel.
Right.
So my question is, what is going on? Why is he not having the say or getting the last word that he needs? What is going on there?
So I agree with you. I don't know what's going on, but his commentary, I've said this to you, I don't think that you should be doing this to a global audience. I think this should be internal. And if he's having issues with the Cons, it should be internal. But he is now bringing that towards the mainstream. He's bringing it towards a presser. He does this a lot. This is something that he does a lot. But this feels a little bit different to me. And it almost feels like he wants to deflect blame in case something bad happens during the season, because I actually shared a quote where he says this could be a very tough season. Why is he saying that? Does he believe that, or is that kind of a way to protect himself if things go bad, Tony? Because that's the way I read it. I read it that maybe, just maybe, he's putting this all out there in case things go bad.
Look, I think every manager tries to protect themselves, and you know what it's like, Russ. No manager is safe. I mean, just look what's happened down at Nottingham Forest. That will give you a, that's going from the the frying pan into the fire, isn't it? I mean, let's be honest. But look, ultimately, I said to you 3 months ago, this will be Marco Silva's last season at Fulham. I am absolutely convinced about that. Okay. I am convinced at the end of this season, he's gone. He walks. Right. I genuinely believe that.
Okay.
So I guess that what he's doing now is he's obviously not scared, but he's obviously worried about what the future holds for him as a manager. And he doesn't want to he doesn't want anything to tarnish that, because he's on the verge of getting a big club or a big move or wherever he thinks he's going from here. But if he has a really poor season for Fulham this year, that is going to really affect his stock.
That's right.
And actually clubs might be, very mindful about actually thinking about him. So he's now caught between the devil and the deep blue sea in terms of, is he protecting himself? Is he coming out to protect himself by making these, statements and saying what he's saying? I think he is. But obviously now he's got to run with what he's got. And now we're going to see what a manager he is. Now he's under pressure. Now he's got to show what he's about. And that's what I'm waiting to see.
Okay. And what's interesting is, again, working off this, I started talking about the cons, but I actually think, going to what you said, I think that these quotes are about protecting his reputation. That's what I think that they're about, Tony. And I actually think this is Marco's last season. And I know this is difficult for people to hear that are listening to this podcast or watching the podcast. I am reading between the lines. I think Marco is pushing his way out of Fulham, meaning he already is thinking beyond Fulham. That's what I think, Tony. Based on everything that has led up to this, he's talking about it being a tough season. He's trying to deflect already before things have really gone bad, because he's thinking about what's coming next. I'm not saying that he's saying, okay, sack me now, but I think that he is setting himself up for his next job.
I think that, look, it's all speculation, and everyone can interpret words and what he's saying and where he's going with it. Ultimately, Marco Silva is going to be judged, Russell, regardless of what you and I think and the fans think or anybody else thinks. Yep. Marco Silva is going to be judged by what the team do on the pitch and results, right? We know the Premier League is a results business. Now, if we're talking again in 7 games' time and Marco Silva is still on 2 points, then he's going to be under pressure. Regardless of anything else, he's going to be under pressure. So, look, at the end of the day, he needs to get a result tomorrow. No ifs, buts, or maybes. Fulham need to beat Leeds tomorrow. That is, without any unequivocal doubt, that they need to get a result. So he needs to get Fulham winning football matches again. And, ultimately, that is what he'll be judged on.
Totally agree. And listen, Tony and I have said this many times. We love Marco Silva. We want Marco Silva to be the manager. I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I'm just trying to read the situation at hand and how the window did not go the way I think he wanted. He talked about the fact that we never got a central midfielder, by the way. He's already talked about it. I didn't mention those tweets from Jack Kelly. He talks about the fact that they never replaced Pereira, okay? You can just feel that there's something going on there. And I agree with him, Tony, because there is going to be this hole to fill in January and maybe beyond that because of the African Cup of Nations. So I totally understand that. He's like, listen, we can't have any injuries. I'm paraphrasing. So I get all that. I just hope that if they start winning games that we can move beyond that. But these pressers lately from Marco are, in my opinion, they're worrying. And I thought before this, he hasn't signed a new deal. I want someone to ask him the question, what is the situation with your contract? Can you tell the Fulham supporters, who you keep talking about in such glowing terms, your contract situation? Now, he's not going to tell us, but at least acknowledge it, because I think everyone, I shouldn't speak for everyone, but I think many are concerned, Tony, about his contract.
Well, why hasn't he signed it? And the only conclusion you can actually come to is he's waiting to see what pans out this season. I think if Fulham qualify for Europe or get a European place by some, miracle, then maybe that will give him something to think about in terms of wanting to stay longer. If Fulham don't get Europe, which we all know is going to be a really big ask regardless, then, as I said, I think Marco Silva, this is his last season. I don't see him staying beyond this season. I don't see, unless Tony Khan and Shahid Khan turn around and said, you know what, I'm going to give you 100 million. You can bring in whoever you like. We're going to have a really good bash at it, and off you go. Something to excite him, something that he can think, okay, now I can go out and recruit and bring in, the top quality players that we need. But again, it's unrealistic, Russell. I just don't see that happening. So, as I said, I think this is his swan song. That I really do.
And I think we have to prepare for that. Okay. And that's why I want to talk about this. Like I said, I listen to and watch a lot of podcasts on the club, and I respect everyone that does a wonderful job, because we need more podcasts out there. We need the media to be covering Fulham. But this is a topic that I've not heard enough on. That's why I wanted to talk. And I know it's difficult. I've seen the comments already. We're being negative. I don't think we're being negative. I think we're being realistic on this, Tony.
We're just talking about it.
Yeah. We're just having a conversation about it. That doesn't mean we're being negative. As I mentioned earlier, Tony and I want Marco Silva at Fulham, but we have to share what's going on. He hasn't renewed his contract. We've got these comments going back and forth, and unless they are going into Europe, I cannot see this going forward unless by some miracle he signs a contract, then we can move on. But I think has caused this uncomfortable situation. It's funny, we talk about the lack of signings. I think him not signing a new contract is a factor in all of this. You and I talked about it. But I also think it's this cloud hanging over the club right now. The fact that he hasn't signed a new deal. He's a lame duck coach right now. I'm going to say it. And not having that nailed down beyond this year is very worrying. And I hope I'm proven wrong, and you're proven wrong, Tony, and he's here for years to come, signs a new deal. But I'm going to mention it because it's out there. And I'm not going to put my head in the sand, Tony, and pretend that Marco isn't in the final year of his contract.
Well, it comes down to two parties. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to whether Marco Silva wants to stay and whether the Khans want to offer him a new contract or not. And then it's whether they can come up with the right numbers and the usual scenario that goes with it. And ultimately that's it, but it's still a results business. And, none of us know at the moment, it's very early days, but none of us know how this season is going to pan out. So, as I said, tomorrow for me, it's a very important game, and it's important that we start, getting points on the board and we start winning home matches again. We have to start winning at home again.
Totally agree. All right. Enough of talking about that. Let's now focus on this huge match against Leeds United Saturday at Craven Cottage. And let's start here. Let's talk about Leeds United. And Leeds United have gone through a little bit of a transformation, trying not to be a yo-yo club. We've heard the term yo-yo club. Let's try not to be that. They're back up with Daniel Farke as their manager. And what I've noticed so far, I'll just share my thoughts and get your thoughts as well. I don't think going forward they're offering much. They do have Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Let's see if he makes a difference. But right now, I think they're struggling to score goals, but they are solid defensively so far. So what do you make of Leeds United so far heading into the match?
Yeah, look, they're very organised. Daniel Farke always gets his teams very organised. They'll play with a really good work ethic. They're very fit. They're very mobile. They're very agile. They've got good pace. And, they're hungry, Russ, because, when you come up from the Championship back into the big time, there's always a buzz about you. They've got a good following. They'll have great support down at the Cottage tomorrow, and they will be up for it. They will be up for it. And, it goes without any saying that we have to be on the front foot. We have to be on the front foot. I think there's a question mark about their goalkeeper, which,
yes,
might be a benefit. And the centre forward Perot as well might be struggling, which is a bonus if he's not playing. But look, I think ultimately, I I think Marco Silva needs to be brave tomorrow. I think he needs to play front foot football. He needs to get at them. And we're at home. We're the home team. I don't really want to see two holding midfielders tomorrow. I really don't.
We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about that because that's the question.
Yeah. So I just, And it is going to be a tough game. They are physical. They are strong. They're very organised at set pieces. We know that that's a bit of an Achilles heel for us, certainly from the way that we defend zonally. So it's going to be a very interesting, intriguing game. But there's no reason why, if Silva sets us up correctly and gets the right team out on the pitch, there's no reason why we can't go and win the game.
Okay, very good. All right. Tony, let's talk about an interesting situation that happened on deadline day. It involved Fulham and Leeds United. I still don't know exactly what happened here. So what do you make of this Harry Wilson situation? Because you and I have already talked about it. What do you make of it now, a couple of weeks later?
Yeah, look, I think Leeds were looking for another player. Harry Wilson, he's obviously got an agent. They obviously must have put something out to get some interest from somewhere. I think Harry Wilson is one of those players that's probably found a bit of form, and he wants to play. And I understand that. Every footballer worth their salt wants to play. They don't want to be sitting on the bench, getting splinters and getting 20 minutes here or half an hour there. And they've looked at it and thought, you know what? With the right price, we can get him in and we'll play him. Leeds United would play him. He'd get into Leeds United's team all day long. So that's what I think. But obviously, Fulham are waiting on whatever they were waiting for with Kevin and Chukwueze and what have you. And I think that if they would have got one more signing in, Harry Wilson probably would have gone. But he's here with us. And I think ultimately, I still think he's one of those players that is more effective when he comes off the bench. And he's proved that many times. Yeah. But he won't be happy with that, Russ. And I think that is basically where it's at. So it really depends on how much football he gets between now and January, and maybe they'll revisit it in January. Who knows?
So I've already seen some chatter coming from the Leeds United side that they could potentially be looking to bring him in January, and I wouldn't be shocked by that. And then that's going to be an interesting situation with the African Cup of Nations. Would Fulham be willing to do that? I can't imagine they would, Tony. But you also have a player that's running down his contract. So it's a difficult one. But that's why this is something we're going to have to watch. Harry Wilson's a true professional. I believe that he will play and do his best for Fulham. I'm not worried about that. But I think this is just something worth watching. So I just want to mention that. And if for some reason there are Leeds United supporters that are watching and curious our thoughts on the situation with Rodrigo Muniz, you're not going to like what I'm about to say, because the Harry Wilson thing I could see as a possibility potentially happening. I'm going to say this right now. I never saw any possible scenario that Rodrigo Muniz was going to Leeds United. I thought all that was the agent trying to drum up business and try to get Fulham to move on better terms with Fulham. I still believe that to this day. I believe that. I believe that there might have been a really good opportunity for him to go to Atalanta, honestly. But I don't think Fulham were willing to sell him, really. And I think now they have to do the right thing, Tony. That's the way I'm looking at it. They have to do the right thing. They have to figure out a new contract for Rodrigo Muniz, but nothing against Leeds United. I just don't think Fulham were willing to sell him at all.
Yeah, again, no one knows what's going to happen. There's normally, when these things come up, there's always some kind of truth to it, but no one really knows just how it's going to be. I think that at some point, Muniz will go. I just have that feeling, and especially if he carries on, kicking on and improving and developing. He started this season pretty slow, but he's notorious, to do that. And I think he's one that, again, I think he struggled. I just don't think playing him in that lone striker role always plays to his strength. So look, we'll see what he does. But at the end of the day, he's got to start scoring goals, because otherwise we won't win football matches. So, it's one of those. We just have to wait and see what happens.
Okay, excellent. All right, my friend. Before we go to starting 11, and then we'll end with our prediction, let's go to our 3 keys to victory. I like doing this. So the 2 of us just come up with 3 keys. I think I got an idea where you're going on. I'll give you first crack at a key to victory for tomorrow for Fulham.
Playing on the front foot, taking the game to Leeds. It's as simple as that. We've got to play with attacking flair. We've got to get the ball wide early, and we've got to get players in the box, and we've got to, hurt them with good delivery and third man runs. And if he does end up playing 2 defensive holding midfield players, then I think we will end up losing the game. I really do. And it's not a game, as I said, it's not a game, because at the moment Leeds are on 4 points. We're on 2. If they win tomorrow, they go to 7 and we're still on 2, which means we're 5 points behind Leeds, have 4 games into the season. That is not a good start. So it's playing aggressive front foot football, taking the game to them and getting our flair players. I'm hoping Kevin starts tomorrow, but we'll wait and see. But getting our flair players on the ball, and as I said, getting players in the box, third man runs from midfield are absolutely critical. So that's one. That's my first one.
Okay. I was going to go along with that, so I will agree with you. And I'll just say be brave. As you said, play on the front foot. I was thinking about that, so I'll agree with you on the third. I'm going to go to another key, and I'm going to go right to Josh King, because I think Josh King is going to start. Tony, if he doesn't, I'll be shocked. Josh King, get him involved early and often. I think this is a wonderful opportunity after what has happened in the match against Chelsea for him to thrive. Get him involved as much as you can, and let's see if he can really influence the game. The kid plays with no fear. So for me, he's a key to victory here.
100%. Listen, he's playing with confidence. He's fearless. And as you saw against Chelsea, what should have been as I say, great moment for him that was snatched away. He's got the ability to open teams up. He's got a great, center of gravity. He can beat players, and he's fearless. And that's what you want. We called it months and months and months and months ago. This lad should have been playing towards the back end of last season.
Yeah.
But look, he's got his chance now, and there's no way Silva doesn't start him tomorrow. Absolutely none.
Okay. Another key to you, Tony?
My second key, Russ, is set pieces, defensively and attacking. We have to be absolutely rigid and clinical defending set pieces tomorrow, because Leeds United will cause us problems if we're not organised. We have to be organised. Simple as that.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Tony, when I do my 3 keys to victory, this is in them usually, and I think it's going to be vital tomorrow. We're recording this Friday, okay, in case anyone's wondering why I keep saying tomorrow. It's going to be Marco Silva. He has to win the coaching battle. What I mean by that is he has to get not just the starting 11 right, the formation right, and his substitutions right. He has to pull all the right levers. I think in this match, we need to see the Silva that we've seen be brave, but make the right decisions. When he does that, because I think Fulham will be set up and know how to beat Leeds United, he has to get it all right, Tony. He has to outdo Daniel Farke here. That's my number 1 key to victory. I'm putting a lot of it on Marco.
Yeah, obviously critical, because at the end of the day, he's the one that makes the decisions and the changes and the substitutions and everything else. My first and critical key to victory is because of our inability to keep clean sheets. And, I think there's been a slight improvement with us defensively in terms of our shape, but I still think we're very vulnerable. My key to victory tomorrow, obviously, we need to score more goals than they do. Simple.
Okay, very good there, my friend. All right, let's now go to starting 11. So let's look at it 2 ways. Give me your starting 11, and then try to predict what you think Marco's going to do based on what you're going to do.
My starting 11, Russ, will be Leno. It will be Tete. Back four will be Tete, Anderson, Bassi, and Robinson. I'd bring Robinson back in, 100%. Then I would lose one of the holding midfield players. So for me, Lukic goes. I thought he was terrible against England the other night, and he looked a bit leggy. I just thought, that's not the sort of game for him tomorrow. I put Sander Berg in there with Josh King and Alex Iwobi. I'd go with Kevin and Sessegnon and Muniz up front. That's how I would start tomorrow.
Okay, excellent. Tony, I'm going to go with your starting 11. You name my starting 11. That was my starting 11 because I think Lukic sits. That's what I want him to do. I want Sessegnon on the right, on the left. We talked about this because I thought maybe we talked about this over the phone that it would be Harry Wilson. But if you're asking what I would do, I agree with everything that you said. Kevin on one side, Sessegnon on the other side, Iwobi with Josh King. And the only thing I might do Iwobi as the 8 and Josh King as the 10. And then I'd have Sander Berg as your holding midfielder. But everything else I agree with.
I just think that is a front foot, that's a front foot team that's got a lot of pace. You got to remember Leeds United have got Nonto and Daniel James, who's coming back to the Cottage.
Yeah.
They've both got pace. And I think that you have to put them on the back foot because if you allow them to get behind our midfield and start getting at our fullbacks, then what happens is we get pulled out of position. Our centre halves get pulled out of position, and that's when the gaps start to open up. And Leeds United have got players like Longstaff, what's his name? Goodmanson. They can open up those areas because they're good enough to do it. So Sander Berg or Lukic or whatever, whichever one he goes for, they've got a crucial role tomorrow, really crucial, just to sit in front of the two centre halves and be that protective factor to stop those balls coming through. So I think with that, and also Kevin and Sessegnon, they can switch. So, give them a run for 15 minutes. If it's not working, switch them up and give the fullback something different to think about. So I just think it's got a lot of flexibility about it, but more importantly, it plays on the front foot.
Totally agree. And our friend Ben Lawrence, he agrees with us, but I've got an interesting question that I've also seen, and I think I've already shared it. I'm going to share it again. It's from our friend Chris. He's like, play ESR and Josh together. Would you do that? That's an option too.
Look, my thoughts about Emil Smith-Rowe, that there's something not right at the moment still. He can't seem to get into the team or start a game or whatever. I actually thought against Bristol City, he actually looked quite sharp and bright and lively, best I've seen him for a while. But at the moment, the truth and the reality of it is Josh King is doing more. And ultimately, I just think that Emil Smith-Rowe right now is a luxury that we can't afford. We need to have a little bit of bite in there still. We need to have a better work ethic. And I think with Iwobi and Berger, you're just going to get a little bit more defensively than you would out of Emil Smith-Rowe. I don't think it's the right game for him tomorrow.
Okay, I hear you on that. Okay, this is what I think Marco's going to do, and you tell me if you agree with me. I don't think he's going to do what you and I just said. I think he's going to go with the back four we talked about. Where I think it's going to be different is here. I think the wingers are going to be Iwobi on the left, Wilson on the right. This is what I think he's going to do. We'll see if I'm right or wrong. I think he's going to go Berger, Lukic, and King and Rodrigo Muniz. That's what I think he's going to do. I don't think that is the right call for this opponent. I just don't think. I think he is going to play it safe. Whereas I think they've got nothing to lose by starting Kevin. Kevin's been playing regularly. So I don't want to hear the excuse that he hasn't been playing, Tony. And he's been at Monspur Park for 2 weeks now, right? Play him. You paid all this money from Chukwueze. I understand why he's been away on international duty. The same thing with the young striker from Sweden, okay? I get that. Not Kevin. You should be starting Kevin. I think he's going to start Iwobi over there.
I am gonna disagree with it. I think Kevin starts tomorrow, and simply because he's a new signing, there's going to be a buzz about the place. The fans will want to see him. And I think Marco's going to throw him in and start him. I just do. I can't see how how he doesn't. I can't. But you might, listen, you might well be right, Russ. You know what Marco Silva likes. He doesn't like to divert from type, and you're probably right. He'd probably end up playing 2 holding midfield players. But I genuinely believe if he does that, Russell, I really do believe that just puts us, on the back foot straight away before we start the game. And
totally,
we go a goal down, and it's a long, long mountain to climb. Long mountain to climb.
Right. And what's interesting about this, I'm glad we're talking about this. I know other shows are talking about it too, but we really should be harping and continuing to talk about it until I think there's any kind of change. The fact that he continues to play these 2 holding midfielders, the fact that we're going back to Paulinho being the one, and now we have 2 players that are still taking the place of Paulinho. Enough of that. Be a little bit more brave, because it's affecting us going forward. It just is. There's no offensive output from these 2 players. So you're hurting yourself in another way. It needs to stop. It definitely needs to stop. And for all the talk about him talking about Marco, about being brave, the manager has to be brave too. The manager has to be as well.
But Russ, when you're lining up like he has done against Brighton and Man U with Berger, Lukic, and he's played Castagna, by the way.
I know.
On the right side, yeah.
Don't need playing Castagna on right wing. This is what Ben has just mentioned.
Yeah, and Benjamin's absolutely right. What you're setting yourself up is, we don't want to concede goals. We want to be much more defensive minded. And maybe it's because we have been conceding so many goals and we have been struggling to keep clean sheets that he's thinking, well, out of possession, at least Castagna and Tete just give us that, bit more solidness defensively. But going forward, it's killed us, because we've got no out going forward at all. We don't have those 3rd man runs from midfield. Berger and Lukic don't have it in their game. They haven't got the ability to do it. Josh King, on the other hand, he has. Emil Smith-Rowe has. Alex Iwobi has. So, we're at home against Leeds United. And no disrespect to Leeds United, but if we're struggling to beat a team like that at home this season, we're in a bad place. I honestly, we are in a bad place. I expect us to beat this team tomorrow, not comfortably, but I expect us to beat them.
I do too, Tony, and that's going to lead us to give our predictions for the match. And if you're watching live, we only have a few people watching live. Thank you, everyone that's watching live, because unfortunately, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we would have a much larger audience watching live with us, but because my X account cannot connect to StreamYard, that's the service we use, we have a smaller audience. But you guys have been very active with your comments. So every single one of you, thank you, because you've really helped our show. We want the input, and I want to thank everyone that has commented. We've had a ton. So let's go to predictions. And if you're, like I said, watching live, share your prediction. Tony, I'll give you first crack. What's your prediction?
Very kind of you, Russ. Very kind. I'm going to go a hard-fought 2-1 win, Russ.
Okay. You're going 2-1? Okay, let's see. Chris, our friend Chris, is going Fulham 1-0 with Josh King score. Paul, I've already seen this, going 3-0. He's going big. I get that too. So if you have more comments, please feel free. I've already shared my comment in a few places. So my prediction, there's a Goldman for you. 3-1. I'm going 3-1, Tony. And I was asked to predict the goal scorers. I'm going Rodrigo Muniz and a brace from Josh King. I'm expecting big things from this kid tomorrow. I think he's going to explode. I really believe that. So Ben's going 2-0 to Fulham. I like that. I like the confidence that we have here. Let's see. Harry Wilson about to score, almost joining them 2-0 to Fulham. Josh in the second. I like that too. And again, listen, thank you so much, everyone that has joined us live. We really appreciate it. Tony, I do want to wrap up the show. Final thoughts before we go, and thank you so much for joining me tonight.
No, thank you for having me. And as I say, great show. And like you said, thank you to everyone that's commented and contributed. It's great. And look, ultimately,
I like that comment. Depends on VAR.
yeah. And Warren's absolutely right. Obviously, you don't know what the referee is going to be and how VAR are going to interject and what's going to happen. So that could have an effect on everything, as we know. So yeah, look, ultimately, as I said, I think it's an important game for Fulham tomorrow on many levels. And as I said, I think I hope that Marco Silva approaches it in the right way and just goes a little bit braver than he normally does. But we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see.
Okay. And my final thoughts are just honestly, just a really big thank you to everyone that watches and listens to Cottage. Like, I know I say this a great deal. I get so much joy out of doing this show. And I always thank you, Tony, personally. We talk a lot off air, and it just means a lot to me. I'm here in America. I don't get to just pick up the phone and talk to someone about Fulham or go to a pub and talk about Fulham. I actually have to pick up the phone and talk to Tony or several friends. Ben, I actually just recently connected with Ben Lawrence on Messenger, and we were just talking for 45 minutes about Fulham. I love that. I love the ability to do that. That's my connection. That's the way I connect. This show has helped me connect to the club I love being so far away. And I just want to thank everyone that spends a little time watching and listening to this show. It means the world to me, and especially the people that do it with me, like Tony. I can't say enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And that's how I'm going to end this episode. For Tony Gold, I am Russ Coleman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk.